Dr. Shelley Martinson, and today I will be sharing some tips for preparing and performing Karg-Elert's Etude in A major. This is Opus 107, number 10. So first, start slowly and practice in chunks with the metronome. Go slower than you think you need to go because you want to build in success from the very beginning. A great starting point is to begin by counting the dotted eighth note and just playing one dotted eighth note beat at a time. So for example, starting on the C sharp and then ending on the second beat of the measure, the F sharp. So for example, this is 80, but I'm going to slow it down just a little bit more for us. So now this is at 65 for the dotted eighth note. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, again, and I'm making sure that my first finger is staying up on that D sharp always. Note the accidentals and the correct articulations. This etude is very specific about the articulation, so that's something to be aware of. And if you're having trouble keeping up with the notes as they're written on the page, a great way to practice this is actually speaking it out. So I put on my metronome, but just say the note names instead of playing. You probably will want to slow it down a little bit for this. It's a little harder than actually playing it. So I have my metronome on 55. And just for example, I'll start at the beginning of the measure. 1, 2, 3, and C sharp, D, B, F sharp. So I'm just speaking them out, including the notes in the key signature and any accidentals as well. I also wanted to mention that this is an etude where you want to be very conscientious about what notes are on the beat and what notes are pickups. It's very easy for these higher notes that are pickups to start to feel like they're on the beat. So same here, making sure that those pickups are staying nice and light and before the beat, and that you're not slowing down through these offset slurs. You can actually apply offset slurs to your normal scales. So rather than just slurring your scales, you can tongue the first note and slur the ones that follow. So for example, if I take a bit of the F major scale, 1, 2, ready, and so instead of that, I would tongue the first one, then slur in groups of 2. 1, 2, ready, and you can gradually work to increase the tempo so you get more comfortable with that articulation. Tip number 2, break down technical passages and practice with different rhythms and different articulations. So I've listed out a few examples, but really the sky is the limit. I think the fun thing about practicing is it really allows us to be creative. Our challenge to ourselves is to try and think of the same passage in many different ways, and that will ultimately make it easier to play. So a great method here is to play it all tongued since it's written all slurred. So I'm going to set that metronome on 75 here, and let's just take the first 2 dotted eighth note beats. So we're starting in the B sharp, ending on the E, all tongued. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, ready, and good. And you probably noticed here we have a C sharp, F sharp, and G sharp, since those are in the key signature. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and so practicing it 10 times in a row perfectly before we change the articulation. We can slur in groups of 3, so each of those dotted eighth beats will be slurred. We could slur in 2s, slur 2, tongue 1, or just in 2s, straight up 2s as well. Similarly, we can use different rhythms. So we can do long, short rhythms and short, long rhythms, and we can change the way notes are grouped. So for example, to do a long, short rhythm, I'd recommend doing 2 notes per beat. So for example, we'd have 1, 2, 1. Let's try that. 1, 2, ready, 1, 2, again, and 1, 2, again, and now let's reverse it. So we're doing short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long, 2, ready, and ready, and then starting on different notes as well will change the way the groupings feel. So I could start on the A, for example, and play 2 notes for each metronome click. Let's try that. So we'll play A, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, F sharp. 1, 2, ready, and I can gradually speed that up. Similarly, I can shift, so I'm starting on the C sharp or I'm starting on the G sharp as well. We tend to be more comfortable playing in duples than triples, so this is a way to really get our fingers comfortable with the passage before we put it back into the groupings that are written, which is 3. We can also add holds on different notes, so meaning I'm stopping the time on a single note. So for example, if I was to do this on the D sharp, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, ready, and. So I'm just really placing my focus there, placing my attention on the D sharp, and you can shift where the hold takes place depending on what spots are feeling tricky. So the larger intervals and the sound can be challenging in this etude too. So practicing slowly with the wider intervals can be very helpful, playing it both forwards and backwards. And here too, you can change the way they're grouped as well. So in this first one I included, let's just take the B to C sharp to B out of context, and we'll play 1 beat per note. I'm going to turn to the side because I want you to notice that my jaw is really not moving very much. It's very important that we're keeping the jaw nice and relaxed, about a thumb's width of space between those back molars. So the change is happening here in the aperture and not with the jaw. 1, 2, ready, and. And now we'll go into 2 against every 1 metronome beat. So we'll have 1 and 2 and 1, 2, ready, and. Again, and. I'll turn to the side. 1 more time, and. Ready, and then gradually going faster. Let's play it now with 3 against 1 as written. 1, 2, 3, 2. 1, 2, ready, and. Ready, and. So watch yourself in front of the mirror to make sure that there isn't extra movement happening here. Similarly, in this passage to the right, I'm going to scooch my video up. We can replace those upper notes with harmonics. So harmonics will be more resistant. You might find that it won't speak the first time you play it, but by practicing with the harmonics, it should feel much easier when you go back to playing with the normal fingerings. So for example, here we'll go very slowly. I'm playing my normal F sharp, but then for the E, I'm playing my low register E. And similarly for that high F sharp at the end of the measure, I'm playing my low register high F sharp. So let's try that very slowly, starting on the F sharp right there. So 1 per note, 1, 2, ready, and. 1, 2, again, and. 1, 2, double time. So if you can play it in tempo or close to in tempo with these harmonics, it should feel pretty effortless when you go back to playing as written. Similarly, octave exercises within your daily warm-up will also really help with flexibility and comfort with those wider slurs. So you're welcome to pause the video on this exercise and incorporate it into your daily warm-up routine. Another technique for practicing sound is to use ha articulations for staccato notes, but especially in the lower register. So the lower octave notes are prone to not speaking, so this is particularly helpful. And by ha, I mean that I'm not using the tongue at all. I'm just using an air attack. So you're saying ha. You can feel a little bit of a lower abdominal kick. So let's just try this on a A for a moment. So ha, ready, and 2, ready, and now let's go ahead and try this on the F sharp. 2, ready, and so we're really learning where that air needs to be set, and then we'll add the articulation with the tongue back in, still trying to keep that buoyancy to the sound. Another spot to practice slowly for sound is any big dynamic contrast. So we have a lot of big dynamic contrast in Karg-Elert. This is one example. I added the forte in parentheses because it had appeared several measures before, but it still is good here at the end. So practicing forte slowly and that transition to the pianissimo, since that's a big change for air and the aperture in the airstream will have to be quite a bit smaller. Tip number 4, take advantage of alternate fingerings on your high E and high F sharp. So my high E, I'm pretty much leaving the pinky off the entire time. When we have larger jumps up to a high E, they're prone to cracking, and so this helps with the stability. Similarly, my high F sharp is also more stable if I'm using my middle finger instead of the traditional third finger fingering. So again, we mostly learn that third finger fingering for the F sharp, but I'm going to actually play with the middle finger. It tends to be a little more flat of a note as well, which is helpful here too. So this is the third finger versus second finger F sharp. I'll get a little closer so you can see me. But it simplifies the fingering passages a little bit. For example, when I'm going from the E here to the F sharp, I don't have to move as many fingers since that finger's already down. Finally, plan out all of your breaths. This etude is particularly challenging for breathing, though we do have quite a few breath points that are written into the music via rest. So there will be some spots you'll need to sneak air. For example, here is one spot. I took a quick breath, and it's going to be truly a quick breath. It should be a short kind of open breath, as though you're saying H-O-H backwards. So the jaw will be dropped, the throat will be relaxed, and the tongue will be down as you're breathing. Finally, I'm more than happy to hear from you if you have any questions or I can help in any way. I do have a slower version of this etude that's recorded with the metronome, if that would be helpful, and also a handout with some additional tips that I'm happy to share. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email address is included right here. So I'm happy to hear from you, and good luck on your audition.